Welcome back to the Centerpiece Podcast. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to tell you about a special opportunity that we have coming up this fall, and that is our online certification in LGBTQ ministry. This 9-month cohort is designed for anybody who has a desire or an interest to learn about starting their own ministry to care for the LGBTQ in their community. During this 9-month cohort, you will hear from teachers like Sally, but also teachers such as Matthew Vines and Justin Lee and others in this space to hear more about what it looks like to care for this group in a healthy way. You'll hear from them. You'll also be able to discuss within the cohort and develop a community of support for as you start your ministry. You can go online to centerpiece.net/certificate to learn more about it today and apply. We hope to see you there. Now, let's jump into today's episode.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Centerpiece Podcast. I'm really excited for you to meet my friends Lisa and Jason Fuller from Searcy, Arkansas. We're continuing our series on coming out stories. You'll hear about Lisa and Jason as they experience their own children's coming out to them. It's full of lots of heart, lots of feelings that so many parents experience when their children come out. And it's got some really good advice for moms and dads and LGBTQ folk alike. I hope you enjoy. Well, welcome, friends. Lisa, Jason, it is so nice to have you on the podcast. I want to get right into your story and what you have to share with other families out there. But start us off by telling us a little about yourselves and where you are, and we'll go from there.
We are Lisa and Jason Fuller, and we are in Searcy, Arkansas. We are a second marriage, so blended family. We've been married about 10 years. Between the two of us, we have 6 children, but I brought 5 of them with me. So anyway, I'm a mental health therapist here in Searcy. Jason's a speech therapist. Anything else to add?
We've almost been married 10 years.
Yep.
So.
Wow. That will be a big anniversary for you.
Yeah. It is. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I know you have been such a blessing to the Centerpiece family, to the Centerpiece Parent Network, especially, and to so many young people throughout the years of your involvement with Centerpiece. And I want to get to all of the ways that you've served and are serving, but I want us to go back and have you share what led you to where you are now. How did you ever come to even think about something like Centerpiece?
For me, it is a almost 20-year journey now. My oldest child is 35. She's turning 36 this year. And when she was about 15 or 16, was the first time she said anything to me about, I think I am attracted to girls. She was playing high school soccer for the first time, and so had locker room experiences, and just, I mean, that wasn't her first awareness, but it was kind of a solidification moment. I was not living in Searcy then, and probably said very unhelpful things, even though I was speaking from a place of love, probably very unhelpful things about thorns in the flesh and such. And we just kind of didn't talk about it for a few more years. And then we did have the opportunity to move back to Searcy. I grew up here. And when she was in college, that was when we started having to have the conversation. She was one of the first writers for a publication that's called the HU Queer Press. It's not an official publication of the university. It just every few years, a group of students will write under that name. And she was one of the first writers with that. And so around the same time, Sally, was when you came and spoke at Harding in Chapel for the first time. And
Yeah.
that put Centerpiece on my radar.
Yeah.
I could not have imagined a place that honored both my faith and the part of me who there was a lot I didn't know, and there was a lot I knew I didn't know, but I knew that my job was to love my child and stay connected to my child. I had not seen that modeled to me
Yeah.
in Christian circles. I had same age friends that grew up here who had come out. I loved them dearly. They were still part of my life, but they were not able to have maintain really good relationships with their parents, most of them.
Yeah.
So even though I knew those parents, I couldn't go talk to those parents because they never talked about it either. So I felt very, very alone. Didn't have the ability to talk to even Rebecca's father. We were still married at the time. We were not able to really talk about it either. So he had a very different ideas about what needed to happen. So, so when you came to Harding, that was a breath of fresh air. And I don't know that we met in person. I think I just emailed you and was like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know what to do about this. And so over time, being able to actually get to know you and be involved in Centerpiece is just one of the first things we did after we got married was go to a parent retreat. So
Yeah.
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 And then Jason has his own story. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things that when they don't come in front of us, we just don't have any idea. Like when we haven't had to deal with stuff that we just don't have any place to put them, you know?
Sure.
Like if someone wanted to talk to me or argue about what's heaven like, and like that's never been a thing for me because I don't know. Like I don't know what to say. I have no, good. But like I don't know. So like I think someone being gay, I had just never really even considered it. And
Yeah.
it's crazy on this end to think just hasn't really crossed my path. If I've met someone who's gay, I spoke to them, but I didn't think like, what would we do if this person tried to place membership? Like
Sure.
I just didn't have any idea what to do with that. And so when my child was around 13 and they came out, I don't feel like I knew what to say or what to do. I know that my ex-wife and I had said, how about we keep this our family secret? And when you don't have any idea how to handle something, that seemed like a good idea.
Sure.
And if your child says they want to be an astronaut, that changes. If your child says they want to play this sport or this instrument, that changes. And so it made sense that in our head that this may change next month. And going to a private Christian school and having conservative family, do we just go, hey, everybody, guess what? Sophie's gay. Is that what?
Yeah.
And so on this end of it, though, telling a 13-year-old, let's not talk about this and let's keep this a secret, that's a lot for a kid.
Yeah.
You bet.
And
Yeah.
if they are going to a school and they are hearing the message that this is a sinful lifestyle, this is a sinful thing, this is not good, and then your family is going, keep it quiet.
Yeah.
And so hearing about Centerpiece and having a place where people talk about it, their kids can come and talk about it. I know that initially part of the Centerpiece message or the main idea for Centerpiece was discussion. Let's just have discussion about this and have these conversations.
Yes.
And so for me, that was the water to a dry sponge idea that like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. My child has known that I love them.
Mm-hmm.
That's never been an issue. It's never been a you're out of the house kind of an issue. But I did not have the immediate words of, I love you, I'm here for you, we'll navigate these things because this is something that you're navigating. And I want to be here as a parent to navigate this with you. I think let's keep this quiet and make this almost shameful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't want a parent to do that to a child.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear what both of you are expressing from so many parents still today. You know, you're talking, Lisa, about a 20-year journey. Jason, nearly that for you. And so that's a long time ago. And yet there are still families probably listening to this episode who can still relate, because in those conservative Christian circles, we're still having trouble having these kinds of conversations. And so that's why we're really grateful to be talking with both of you today as parents. Lisa, you mentioned feeling so alone and not having anybody you could reach out to.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about what you were feeling at that time, and how you eventually found others that you could talk to. What did that look like for you?
How I felt. Alone, for sure. That was it. Overwhelmed. I felt overwhelmed because I knew that, I mean, it's your baby, right? That's your baby. And when my kids were little, I had this little sign hanging up on my refrigerator that said, God would not have given you this child if he had not also given you what you need to take care of this child and to raise this child.
Wow. Yeah.
And so somehow, I mean, that idea stayed with me, and I was like, okay, this is still my child. This is still the very same child that God gave me. This may be new information to me. This is not new information for God. And I'm thankful. I think this is a wiring thing for me, but I've always been a person who is able to take the good, bad, and ugly to God. And so in my aloneness of someone with skin that I could talk to, that was very real. But there was a constant outpouring of like, I don't know what to do with this. Please just help me not say the wrong thing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I had listened to Rebecca even more then, you know, listened more, instead of feeling like I had to have answers.
Yeah.
I had to know that we could just, you know, kind of stumble through it together, which is really kind of eventually what we wound up doing. But
that has to be hard for a parent, though, because we're led to believe that the parent is the one with all the answers, and you want to guide and instruct and do all the things, right?
mm-hmm.
I've never been somebody's mom, so what do I know, right? And at the same time, I can just imagine my own mother in that same role, wanting to guide me, wanting to have all the answers. She was really big on saying, well, I don't know about that, but let me read up on that. Let me find out some more. And it sounds like that's exactly what you did, and you began to teach yourself. Is I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, I mentioned that I had a couple of friends, like one that I grew up with. I don't remember not knowing him. We both grew up here in Searcy. And so definitely reached out to him. You know, another friend from college who I didn't have quite as much of an ongoing relationship with him, but he had been very upfront and public about his own journey of navigating both his queerness and his faith. He's a writing teacher and had published a beautiful essay about the first time being able to be accepted at church and take communion at church after being disfellowshipped from the one he grew up in. And so they were both resources for me, very definitely. And I'm not going to get the names right, but there were some other just like foundations and books. I'm a reader, I'm an information seeker. And so eventually that did, lead me to realizing, oh, there are places with affirming theology. And at the time I didn't know what to think about that, to be honest. It's like my heart very much wanted that. And I've told friends before that, like, I think what I did during that time is let my heart lead. I didn't know what to do with doctrine. I didn't know what to do with the right or wrong question. And I was seeking information, but I didn't even know what to do with it a lot of times when I found it.
Sure.
And so I just had to, for a while, almost set aside the need to know, not the need to learn, but the need to know.
And there's a difference. That's good.
Yeah. And to just, again, keep letting my heart lead. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, because decisions would come up like, okay, she has a girlfriend. Oh, they're getting married. Like, what are we going to do? I didn't know. I let my heart lead. So, yeah, we went to their wedding. Absolutely. Yeah. To their wedding.
But there are a million little things that do come up like that, though, because at the time working for a private Christian school, if your child says that they're getting married, do you post on social media that your daughter's marrying her girlfriend at the time? Or do you ask friends to have the wedding shower? And who is a safe person to have this wedding shower? Do you attend the wedding? And how do you just... all of those were conversations that typically, she would go to all her friends and everyone would be like, woo, the kid's getting married. And it just kind of had a different feel to it because we hadn't navigated that before.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was all very new. Very new. Jason, talk to us as a dad and the feelings that you initially experience. What was going through you emotionally?
Man, that's tough. I've always been super close to my child, and it is very difficult to know how to navigate that. And something that happened to me when I was around 14, I was having a lot of knee and foot issues, and we went to a doctor in San Antonio. And while we were there for 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, seeing different specialists, it was just me and my mom and who. And
yes, and love.
We went to a Church of Christ there, and I went on a Sunday and then I went on a Wednesday night. And both times when I went to the youth group, no one spoke to me. And I'm fairly friendly and just tried to talk to people.
Sure.
Everyone had their own cliques, and I just didn't feel. And so the next Sunday, I told my mom, hey, I don't really feel comfortable going back. And she, even though we have family at that church, she called around, found another church, and we went to another church.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she was having to tell her family that, hey, we're going to be going to a different place. But she took care of me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she felt like, I think, as parents, it's always it's just hard to know what to do. Do you push your child? Do you say, stick with that sport or stick with that instrument? Or do we honor their feelings and say, or maybe you do want to quit soccer or whatever. But when I had said, I don't feel comfortable at this church, instead of shaming me in some way, she said, hey, let's look for another place. No problem. She took me somewhere else. And I feel like when you ask as a father, what were my feelings about my child? I want to protect my child.
Yes.
Sophie is just the most dearest. I can't think of anything just more dear than that. And so wanting to do no harm and to let them know, if this church rejects you, I want to be in between you and the church. And I think growing up, we'd say the church is first over our spouse or our kids, or that's, but we're not saying our relationship with God. I'm saying if this group of people is going to be ugly or mean or not accepting of my child, I'm going to find a different place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's the feelings that just, I want to, you want to take care of your kid.
Oh, yeah. I love that you shared that story, Jason. That I've not heard that story about Grandma Kay, but goodness, it just resonates with everything I know and love about her. And that explains so much about you as a dad, as a man, as my brother in Christ. That tells us everything that we need to know. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges among the parents that I come in contact with, is the question of, where do I find faith community that will love and nurture my child and help them grow spiritually and deepen their faith in God, to help them hang on to their faith? Where can I go where they will be accepted and embraced for who they are, and be a place that is spiritually nurturing? That's really important. Y'all are part of a faith community in Searcy, are you not?
We are. We're members at downtown, and are involved at different levels. I sing on praise team sometimes. We have a class, a small class group that we're mostly involved with. But a couple of years ago, and it wasn't, I have to go back a little bit and say one of the fears that I had definitely was fear. One of the feelings I had was fear.
Yes.
Fear, even, Marriage Equality Act had not been passed. There was still just so much cultural homophobia. Like, what is my child's life? What is Rebecca's life going to look like? How much harder is it going to be? Even things about what is it going to do to my job? That was a real concern at times. And so fear was definitely part of it. But once I made changes in my work because I wanted to be able to be more publicly vocal and supportive. And so once that happened, this is our third year. Yeah, we're wrapping up our third year. There's been a small group of us here in Searcy who meet on Sundays, just at a local makerspace. And we are affirming, egalitarian. We have an hour that is more, we call it our liturgy hour, although it's often not as structured as a liturgical church service, but it does involve music and singing and scripture.
Right.
And then the second half of it, the second hour, is more discussion based. And we have people who are there just from church trauma, who's still trying to hold on to whatever they can, but also several other families who have kids in the LGBTQ community and have not been able to find a more traditional church setting that is supportive. I think in our area, to find that if you wanted a more traditional church, it would be the Episcopal Church, maybe a smaller Methodist church that I'm aware of, but it's not going to happen at a Church of Christ. And that's that's my heart. That's my spirit.
Sure.
That's my spiritual DNA. And so
Sure.
that's why we're still connected. That's why we haven't been ready to say, just cannot be here anymore. And yet we have regular conversations about if our presence and our continuing to be involved in a Church of Christ is ever more of a liability in our relationship with our kids than an asset or a neutral, then that will be our decision maker.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a really hard balancing act. It's an ongoing question, and yet we all know those spaces in churches of Christ, which are safer, and having these kinds of conversations in ways that I am very hopeful about for the future. It may not be happening as fast as the three of us would like, but those conversations are happening, and there are a handful of affirming churches of Christ. So I love our heritage there too, and yet when balanced against your children's faith, that's a legitimate concern, and your children's faith has to come first.
I know you've heard me say this before because I say it a lot. Early on, I figured out that if I wanted to set Rebecca aside, sadly, that was not an uncommon practice in church families for a long time if a child came out. If I wanted to distance myself from her, I probably would have had a lot of people sad with me, but also saying, yeah, that's just what you have to do. And, so if I had wanted to leave that and come all the way over here and just hole up inside of a church world, I could have done that and had a lot of people coming alongside me for doing that. If I had set all of that aside and come all the way over here and just completely embraced anything and everything and said, I'm done with that, I would have also had a lot of people saying, come on in, the water's fine,
Yeah.
you're going to feel better. But to find people who are willing to stay in that ongoing act, that ongoing tension that you mentioned of it's an ongoing thing. Harder to find those people.
Yes.
Harder to find those people. So,
but we found each other.
We did.
And there's a whole bunch of us in the Centerpiece family and beyond, of people who are deeply devoted to our Christian faith.
Yeah.
And not willing to go to those extremes of letting go of our children or letting go of our faith and being in community with one another.
Yeah.
So may we stay the course with God's help. I am so grateful for y'all being in that space with me. Yeah.
Well, we are grateful for you being in that space with us because, we are very, very. Yeah.
I want to go back, Jason, to something that you mentioned, and both of you can weigh in on this. Lisa, perhaps from a therapeutic standpoint, Jason, you talked about the desire for secrecy in your family. Not wanting your child to come out publicly, to just keep that under wraps. I remember in lots and lots of therapy early on, hearing that phrase that we're only as sick as our secrets. Talk to me about how that played out for you, and Lisa, maybe give us a primer on the harms of secrecy.
The first thing I'll say, because I know I'll forget it, but I've heard people talk about a second closet and how like coming out, and how
Yeah.
sometimes it's the child comes out, but then there's a time where the parent kind of comes out as
Yes.
having a child who's gay. And I feel like it's easy to convince yourself, or at least was for me, that I'm being quiet to protect my child.
Mm-hmm.
But also, when we have this secret and I'm not sharing it with my friends,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not sharing it with church people, and a lot of times not sharing it with Sophie, it's just something that we
Yeah.
keep quiet. Um, I don't, I don't know. I do think that was a big burden for our group. Um,
Yeah.
and I think it's a weird thing to be at a family gathering and somebody looking at Sophie and asking them like, "Oh, do you have a boy you're interested in?"
Yeah.
And my ex-wife is silent. I'm silent. Sophie's sitting there.
Yeah.
No. um,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I think if I could look at myself, I would say something like, "Do better." you know,
Yeah.
like that. Just I don't know. That's a lot. And also when we look at things with other eyes, later we can also say, let's say a little girl is a heterosexual, cisgendered person. Like, do we look at that little girl and say, well, who's your love interest? Who's your love interest? Well, what
Yeah.
if they don't have
Yeah.
one? And then they feel shamed about that. Like, is that
Yeah.
so? Sometimes asking us, are you married, or you have any kids yet? Do you have
Right.
some of those questions? I know a lot of these are opening conversations. When we start questioning about this, we question about that, and how much do we respect our kids and their feelings. But yeah, I think that it was not a healthy secret for us to put on Sophie, but I don't think it was a healthy secret for me to have either,
Yeah.
because to have good friends that I don't share that with,
Yeah.
and feeling like, well, it's their story to tell. Yeah, but we're all having the same wound, essentially, of the secret part of it,
Yes.
and not having a group to talk about. And there were there are a few things sometimes that let us kind of test the waters. And I know that there was a person that Sophie had a relationship with, and I had asked their dad, could we get together and talk about our children's
Mm-hmm.
relationship? And he said, nope, we're handling it. Click.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that you're like, doesn't make you think, oh, I should ask someone else.
Wow.
you
Yeah.
know, like, so I don't know. That's, I guess, my initial thought
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
about
Thank you
the
for that.
secrecy.
Thank you for that.
I, first of all, therapist Lisa has to normalize the difficulty, because this is hard to talk about with your kids, because a lot of church culture can barely talk about sex anyway, like
Sure.
straight, heterosexual, married
Right.
sex. We can barely talk about it. So just to normalize, there are a lot of reasons that this might be challenging for parents above
Sure.
and beyond LGBTQ issues. So
Mm-hmm.
please resist any extra guilt or shame over
Right.
the difficulty of this. But I mean, we do. One of the sayings I love is that healthy families can talk about things,
Mm.
and it's the unhealthy ones that that do the secret keeping and the shameful
Yeah.
conversations. And I mean, if we think about, I mean, most of us have a little bit of working knowledge of what like recovery groups are about and the 12 steps. And like the first step is admitting that there is something there that needs to be navigated. And so if we're not even having the conversations with our own child, we can't begin to work towards healing in a relationship if there's been some damage. Also, what we resist is what persists and sticks around. And so if there's difficulty in it and we resist having those conversations, the difficulty is just going to stick and grow. And it's going to be awkward.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who came up with it first, but we often remind ourselves we've had to have conversations about topics that we didn't even know existed. Like, we didn't even know. Like, nobody told us this. This was not what to expect when you're expecting,
Yeah.
It's just not. And so it's going to be challenging, but I think it's also going to be worth it. And I think I mentioned earlier, I wish I had listened more than I talked, but that parental need, because we've been told being a parent is we're paving the path. We're helping them know how to manage life. And yeah, there's an element of that. Of course there is. But there's, as much as anything, it's a coming alongside, especially once they're young adults and adults, it's coming alongside. And I guarantee you there are times that this is a non-issue and we are way more concerned about their financial stability.
Sure.
Or, I mean, like, just life. Life just keeps on lifing.
Sure.
And so it's when we do not communicate and things become even bigger than they are, then it just makes it more difficult. Everything more difficult. Everything.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So both of you have touched on things that you might have done differently initially when your children came out to you.
Mm-hmm.
What would you go back and specifically do differently? What or maybe what advice do you have for parents who may think, well, my child is I'm never going to have to experience that? What would you say to prepare parents whose children have yet to come out to them?
Yeah, I would probably start looking at what some of those gut level reactions are to even things like gay characters on TV shows.
Yeah.
Or to news stories that come up. Are the public figures that I'm listening to, whether that's just a thinker or a politician or whoever, how are they talking about this? Because it may not be on your radar for your kids. It may not be. You may not be having conversations about this with your children at all. But I guarantee you they notice what you're listening to.
Yes.
And how you respond.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I would listen very carefully to what is said at church, especially.
Yes.
Whenever LGBTQ issues are discussed. And I don't even like saying it that way. That issue sounds very dehumanizing to me. These are people.
Exactly.
These are
yeah.
yeah. And so listen to that because, we both thankfully had the experience that, Rebecca had seen me. She knew I had a gay friend. She knew that. And so she knew that's who I was as a person. And yet she also spent years hearing messages in church that were not helpful. And I was not proactive about countering that.
Yeah.
Wasn't, because I felt like, well, she knows I don't think that way. Well, I should have articulated that a little bit better, more definitively.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would look really close at how I'm responding to culture's approach in general, cultural conversations in general, because your children will see that.
Exactly.
Will see.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good word, Lisa. I can't tell you how many people I talk to, LGBTQ folk, who can remember, just like I can remember, things that were said within my family, jokes that were made. And this was, for me, that was way back before there were characters who were LGBTQ on television shows, and yet any reference whatsoever, there was always a comment made, and so that can be very, very harmful, if nothing else, to just shut down any conversation that you would want to have later on.
Yeah.
So many people have told me that message sent very early in their lives has kept them from ever coming out to a person because they heard what they commented on. It's something as innocuous as, Ellen DeGeneres' talk show.
Yeah.
And a comment is made about Ellen, and so that tells you very quickly this person would not respond well to my coming out to them. So, good word. Jason, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I think I like what both of you said, that sometimes how we respond to something that's tangential or not related at all lets the kid know, your child know how available you are. And so if they see how you respond to them lying about something and you totally lose it, or
Yeah.
does that make them think, hey, this is a real sensitive topic? Let's talk to mom or dad about this one.
Yeah.
If they feel like mom or dad have this open posture that I can come with anything, and we have this history of talking about difficult things, then hey, here's another thing that we can talk about. But if you don't talk about anything difficult, and I'm shut down every time that I try to bring up something difficult, then what are the chances that they're going to bring this up? And what I would add to that, what I was thinking about before I heard and listened to what y'all said, was that through Centerpiece and through life, I've heard enough people in their coming out stories say, when I brought it up, these are people with good relationships with their parents, but will say, when I brought it up, I thought that night I would have to leave the house.
Yeah.
And when I brought it up, and you've heard these stories that, and sometimes they're shocked that their parents just cry and love on them and are just like, of course you're here and we love you and we'll walk through this.
Yeah.
But at the time they are scared to death of what will my parent think. Sometimes I know that you two love the good grades thing, and so the idea of bringing home a C or a B plus, would be difficult, right? And so if you're bringing something to your parent that you think my parent might be disappointed in me, I think we need to think about, even if our child hasn't come out, how are we responding to let them know I'm safe? You can bring things up. And when they do bring up difficult things, and they will, even if they're not in this arena, they will bring up things. And if they say, I've done this stupid financial decision, or I've done this thing, or I need to get a divorce, or how are we saying, I love you, life has ups and downs, and I'm here to talk about hard things, but I want you to know I'm in your corner.
Yeah.
That's what I would say to parents, because we've just heard parents over and over feel like I didn't say what was right. I alienated my child. I hurt my child. And I don't know, just letting them know that we're safe and that we can have difficult conversations.
You bet. Yeah. So in the time we have left, I want you to put your mom and dad hats on, um, and think about what you would tell young people who are perhaps thinking about coming out to their parents. What would you advise them to prepare for, to think about as they go into that moment of coming out to their parents?
My first thought is, let's give them, like, when you tell them, give them some time to process this, because you've probably been processing it for a while.
Yeah.
And just, there's a thing that I've just been thinking about a lot, about what we all live in a fantasy world, and we think about retirement. Well, retirement's not here, but we're thinking about it. And we've thought, when our 2-year-old, you hear about, well, pray for their spouse or pray for their whatever. And sometimes we think, oh, they'll be in college. Well, what if they don't go to college? Or, oh, I'm imagining this. And we're always future projecting.
Sure.
And so if this child goes, hey, you've been imagining me with a boy and I'm with a girl, or you've been imagining me with a girl and I'm with a boy, like, it takes a while for those pathways that we've been imagining to there. And so,
yeah,
like, I would advise that when you have these real honest conversations with your parents coming out, to give them some time to process, because it may be that for 15 years they've been imagining one thing, or sometimes using certain pronouns for 15 years, or certain
sure.
Imagining certain things. And so give them some space, because a lot of people that we know over time have come alongside their kid, but initially it was just such a big, this is, it feels like the sand, the feet are on shifting sand.
Yes.
Takes a little bit to get moored again.
Yeah. That's a good word.
Yeah.
That's a good word, Jason. Thank you.
I'm trying to think super practically. I would probably recommend maybe even practicing with someone else first, if you have somebody in your life that you know is safe. Whether it's a friend, just to kind of have an idea of what it is that you do want to say. What are the most important things? Because it's possible that parent brain is going to go into almost shutdown mode, so what's the most important thing? And I think this actually was at the last Centerpiece conference, that someone kind of reframed it as, rather than coming out, it's a letting in.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be a big, huge public, now the whole world knows. Maybe that's what you want. Okay. I'm not going to tell anybody what they can and can't do, but maybe it's just a more gradual, this parent is safe, and so I'm going to let them in. And then together we can navigate, how do we bring the other parent in if I'm more concerned? How do we let grandparents in? How do we let siblings in if that's part of it? As I say that, I also feel like that's putting so much responsibility on that sweet child. It is their story, and it's their story and their truth to tell and share when and where they feel safe. And that's a metric I would still bring into it. Like, if it doesn't feel safe, man, have someone with you that can help. If it needs to happen and it doesn't feel safe, have someone with you that can be that safe presence. It may take a third person. It may take a neutral third party, or it may take a a biased third party that's going to be biased on the child's side, because safety matters.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where are your hearts today? What do you find yourselves involved in moving forward?
Well, I think we're pretty committed to our Sunday group, and we do more than that. The bigger goal is helping create community. And so it's, Wednesday night soup and sandwiches, depending on the weather.
Yeah.
It's, I do plan, I'm planning to do Centerpieces ministry, certification, so we can be even more effective.
Fantastic. That's wonderful news. And we're going to open those applications very well. They're already open, actually.
You said that
Yeah.
without any prompting or anything.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Lisa. I'm very excited to hear that.
Well, I'm looking around my community, and it's not happening in our churches, and so it's got to happen somewhere, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
It is happening in our churches. Maybe not in the walls, but it's happening in our churches among us church folk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to that point, we've had quite a few people over to our house from our church and some leaders from our
Wonderful.
church. And so it may not be like the overall group, but there are supporters, and there are also, like you said, where's our heart? Our heart is having conversations.
It is, yeah.
And neither of us like the idea of being the spokesperson of anything or being in front of but we love one-on-one conversations or small group conversations. And so I think for me, our messages are with people,
Yeah.
just individuals, people we have connections with, and
Yeah.
hear that somebody's child has come out, or if sometimes they'll reach out to us, sometimes we'll reach out, ask how they're doing, would they like to come over? And so it's just those more interpersonal
Yeah.
connections.
Yeah.
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 Do you even have a book group?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
We
Tell
have
us about that, Lisa.
have a group of moms of LGBTQ kids on every part of that umbrella, and we meet twice a month. We've read Matthew Vines, we've read Justin Lee, we've read Jeff Chu. Just lots of stuff. We've read some fiction.
Yeah.
We've read some fiction because
Great.
fiction is learning through imagination. It's
Exactly.
learning empathy.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We watched a documentary and discussed that. So, books are just part of who I am. And so anytime
Yes.
I do a book group, I just tell people this is about community. If you read the book, that's great. If it just adds to your list of things you might want to read and you get some good ideas and some good connection community, that's great too.
That's right.
So yeah, we have that. It meets through Zoom. So that's, we're at a place where we're going to open it up to a few more people. So if there's somebody that's
Oh,
interested.
wonderful.
Yeah.
How can they get in touch with you if they might be interested in that?
I can make my email available to you.
Okay.
Could they reach out to you?
Yeah. Certainly contact us at Sally@centerpiece.net. And I'll get you in touch with Lisa. That's wonderful.
I have heard people say, and it took me a long time. Because this is 20 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, after the stretching and the pain of growing, all of that, I will say today, I am so thankful that God blessed me with a gay daughter, because I have learned more about God than I could have ever learned without that.
Wow.
My faith has grown in ways it would have never grown without this experience. And so, yes, it's a blessing. It's a gift.
Wow. Wow, Lisa. Thank you for that. I relate to that as someone who is gay, and I've come to a place of being grateful for my own sexuality in ways that is a stark contrast, 180-degree pendulum from the shame that I felt for being gay. To hear you say that as a mama, that's precious to me.
Thank you. Thank you for loving us and our kids.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you for loving our kids.
We love you. Thanks for tuning in to the Centerpiece Podcast. If you'd like to know more about Centerpiece and keep up with us online, visit our website at centerpiece.net. That's Centerpiece, PEACE.net. We'll see you next time.